Brandon Cooks against the Steelers may be longer. Infection developed in his right knee. So, and what the Raiders want is like a second-round pick and a player, or a third-round pick and a fifth-round pick. It's kind of where they're at. Devontae's expensive, and there's those that believe he's a little bit past his prime. Whatevs. The Cowboys have to take a long-term approach to this, not look at the Steeler game with Brandon Cooks. 3 things to think about. Number 1, Washington and Jaden Daniels. It looks like you got a Lamar Jackson in division now, and they're not paying him for 4 or 5 years. So the new owner, the GM, the coach, the coordinator, and Jaden Daniels, watch out. Dak went 24-4 against the Giants and Washington. 24-4. Those days are over. It looks like Washington could be the new Baltimore. Right? The right coordinator, a twitchy, accurate quarterback. So, number 1. You better think big picture. The gravy train's over. 24-4 is not happening. I even like the Giants this year. I just think they're missing one piece. I like the Giants. Previous years, last 4 or 5, they've been a mess. I don't think they are. Okay, second thing. You just paid Dak, CeeDee Lamb, and you're paying Micah soon. You want to become the Miami Dolphins? I mean, you'll be absurdly top-heavy. You have a million holes. That's not what you want to do. Number 3, look at the whole NFC. These teams are potent offensively. Detroit, San Francisco, Green Bay, Minnesota, Seattle. I just watched 38 first downs by Geno Smith. Their star receivers, DK Metcalf. Their running backs. Those are potent offenses. Dallas's defense stinks. I looked this morning. They're 26th in points allowed. 25th in yards allowed per play. Dallas needs a defensive stopper. Go look right now at the NFC. It is powerful offenses. And Dallas, even with Davante Adams and CeeDee Lamb, are not going to win shootouts. They may not get the ball in the second half because they can't stop the run. They're atrocious. 32nd also in rushing. So they're not going to be a ball control team that can keep the ball away from a Darnold, a Jordan Love, or a Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy. They can't run the football. And they can't stop the run. So to me, at the trading deadline, go get a back. We strongly advise you to get Derrick Henry last year at the trade deadline or in the offseason, and you didn't, and he was only $8 million. So I think Davante Adams for Dallas, I think he's a fun toy, and they'd be better offensively. We know Dak's always been good the more weapons he has. But start looking at the NFC. Start looking at your division. You need a run game to keep that ball away, time of possession dominance to keep it away from Jaden Daniels twice a year, and these high-powered NFC offenses, and you got to be able to stop the run, or Davante Adams and CeeDee Lamb will be watching the game from the sidelines as you have the ball for 21 minutes and somebody else has it for 38. Jerry Jones on Dallas radio this morning talking about the Davante Adams situation. He's apparently on the market.
Jerry, you have talked about the importance of just these young guys stepping up because of some of the bigger, higher-paid contracts you guys have had to have. Does that formula have to remain when talking about making a deal?
There's a reason why the player will be available if you try to make a trade. There's a reason why. And it's either prohibitively high relative to what you would have to trade to get them. And so you don't get any wishful thinking here when you bring somebody in or look at making a trade. Oh, let's go make a trade. It's not there usually.
Now, remember, Davante Adams and Antonio Pierce don't get along. He's been outspoken. CeeDee Lamb pretty much plays and delivers and produces. He's great. You don't get a lot on that. He gets upset on the sideline occasionally. It's in a game. It doesn't bother me much. But I think Jerry's right on this. Jerry's not impulsive. I have my issues with Jerry and the vanity and the talking constantly and putting pressure on his coach. But he's not crazy town. It's not like Indianapolis or, Dan Snyder, who used to run Washington. I never, Cleveland. I don't feel Dallas is that. I just think they're a small business and need an outside voice and a set of eyes from outside the building with the last name not being Jones. But I don't think it solves Dallas's core issues. They can't run it, and they can't stop the run. And the only way to beat high-powered offenses, we're all looking at the Rashee Rice issue for Kansas City. The bigger issue may be Pacheco. When Kansas City's at their best is they are scoring, but they're controlling both lines of scrimmage because of a strong run game along with Mahomes. And right now, it's very hit and miss without Pacheco. So this league gets more offensive. If you have a bad defense, there's one way to compete: time of possession. Devontae could score quickly, but I don't think it works. J-Mac with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Start with Nick Sirianni, the embattled coach of the Eagles. I know they're 2-2, but the vibes are very, very bad. They got destroyed in Tampa last week, and they're on the bye this week. Eagles' problems down the stretch of last season seem to have like they crept over to this season, kind of carried over. Sirianni says there's no sense in worrying about last season.
I can't focus on what happened last year, and that's behind us. We did the things that we needed to do after that season, and this team's 2-2. Saquon Barkley doesn't care that the Eagles are 3, and you know what I'm saying, and neither does Makai. I'm just worried about getting the team better. You can't worry about any of those different things. Right now, we're 2-2. Got a lot of football in front of us, and just put my head down and work.
In one sense, I kind of agree with him. There's no point in looking back. Hey, it went poorly at the end of last season.
Yeah, but that's easy to say.
I know.
Can you imagine, I run a company, and we were terrible at the end of last year. And the new calendar year, we're mid-February, and we are sinking fast. And I'm the CEO, and the owner goes, well, last year, hey, no counting last year. I would admit we're off to a slow start in the first 6 months. Of course, the owner would go, yeah, this is like a 19-month trend. We're circling the drain. You have to consider last year. You can't, because remember.
How much stock do you put in last year?
Well,
a lot of things were different. The coaches,
great
players.
was Steichen. So when a great coach leaves, we've seen this in college and pro football. The first part of the following year, when Chip Kelly left Oregon, Mark Helfrich, you can take that momentum for an extended period of time. There have been a lot of Larry Coker in Miami. I can go, remember that? B took Butch Davis's talent and momentum, and we were like, for a year and a half, whoa. But you have to look back at any business, including football, and go, okay, a really important guy left the organization, Shane Steichen. We had a little momentum when he left for about 6 games. And it has deteriorated to the point this past weekend, at one point they had 0 yards in the first half and Tampa had 250. You have to pay attention to last year.
Yeah, how much though? It can't be like 50% of the discussion.
If you're undefeated right now and the offense wasn't an issue, then last year doesn't matter. But it's gotten worse. So it's like, here's the graph. It's straight downhill.
Again, I don't want to keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, but Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, AJ, I don't want to read too much in that Tampa game. I think obviously coming out of the bye, you better show up against Cleveland, or then it gets a little squirrely, right? Cleveland is a bit of a mess. Although
I've defended Philly forever. I don't love Sirianni, never have, but I've defended him because I like the owner and the culture. But, man, I know it shouldn't matter that much, but watching that game against Tampa was like, wow, Tampa's not a great team.
Total no-show.
They did not show up. So that tells me, are the players not listening? Is he not coaching? You don't see very often in the NFL a no-show. Usually if a team has a bad first half, they fight like hell in the second. You see that all the time in the 1 o'clock window. A team doesn't show up. Or you're getting beat by a great team. Buffalo's getting beat by Baltimore. But for Tampa to run you out of the building, if you took Saquon out, they did nothing well. And Saquon's just their best player right now.
They didn't have that many options, outside of Saquon. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers, 3-1. Huge game Sunday night. The offense is getting medium remarks so far. Justin Fields has started every game, but weirdly, Tomlin is stopping just short of naming Fields QB1. I guess the Pittsburgh media is obsessed with this. Russell Wilson still rehabbing that calf strain. The biggest calf strain ever. It's been, 5 weeks. Here's what Tomlin had to say about his quarterbacks.
Seems like he's in a place where his participation is going to pick up some in terms of a practice setting, a live pocket, if you will. We won't draw too many conclusions, but we'll just start that process, and we'll comb through that day by day, evaluate his ability to move and function and protect himself, and obviously evaluate his level of productivity, and we'll let that be our guide in terms of whether we get into serious consideration as we push forward toward game time this week.
It's crazy.
This is probably the big one, right? Dallas, Sunday Night Football.
It's
home
interesting.
game.
So Dallas is now without a number 2 receiver. This is a great defense. And I will say this, they were getting boat raced by the Colts, and they fought like crazy
They
late
were
in the
due
game.
for a letdown.
And Justin Fields isn't amazing in the pocket, but he's better, and he can make things happen off script. So I think in previous years, we always thought Dallas would have a stinker, but they always bounce back. This year, I don't think Dallas has the ability to bounce back. I don't think they have enough good personnel. And so in previous years,